As the sun bid adieu, a small, sleep-laden town was shrouded in an unspoken apprehension. The day had unfolded as any other, yet a shadowy presence hung in the air, a specter of the unknown. In her cozy kitchen, Margaret was adding the final flourishes to her pumpkin pie when she caught a whiff of something peculiar, a faint trace of sulfur. She scanned her surroundings, her mind racing to identify the source of the smell. "Thomas!" she called, hoping her husband might deduce the origin of this peculiar scent. A few moments later, Thomas appeared, his hands smeared with the remnants of his latest project, an antique radio he'd been trying to resurrect. "Smell what?" he asked, his forehead creasing in confusion. Margaret inhaled deeply, only to find the sulfuric smell had vanished. "Never mind," she said, dismissing the incident with a wave of her hand. Thomas nodded and retreated to his sanctuary, the workshop. Margaret resumed her baking, slicing apples for her renowned pie filling. Suddenly, the earth beneath her seemed to tremble, a low rumble resonating through the house. Fear washed over her as she darted to the window, her eyes scanning the peaceful street blanketed in a carpet of autumn foliage. "What on earth?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. The rumbling ceased as abruptly as it had begun. Margaret, her nerves frayed, returned to her baking with a newfound urgency. The sound had been unnerving, otherworldly. Simultaneously, on the other side of town, a pair of young boys, Will and Henry, were engaged in a game of catch. Their game was interrupted by an unexpected spectacle, a flash of light streaking across the evening sky, reminiscent of a firework. "Whoa!" Will exclaimed, his baseball glove slipping from his grasp. "Did you see that?" Henry nodded, his wide eyes reflecting his awe. "Yeah," he replied. "I wonder what it was." The boys stood in silence for a moment, their eyes glued to the sky. With no further spectacle, they shrugged off the curiosity and resumed their game. As the evening unfolded, the town was plagued with a series of peculiar events. The ancient church bells rang out, their toll echoing through the streets, despite no one being near to ring them. Canine residents barked relentlessly at unseen threats. Whispers meandered on the breeze, unintelligible yet chilling. Margaret and Thomas were seated at their dining table, the delicious pumpkin pie a small comfort against the day's unsettling events. They were just beginning to relax when a soft tapping at the front door shattered the silence. "Did you hear that?" Thomas asked, the tapping resonating through the house. Margaret nodded, her fork clattering onto her plate as her heart pounded in her chest. She exchanged a worried glance with Thomas as they left their dessert behind and cautiously approached the front door. The tapping escalated, each knock louder and more insistent. Margaret's trembling hand reached for the doorknob, slowly turning it. The door creaked open to reveal nothing. The porch was vacant, devoid of any signs of life. Margaret stepped onto the porch, her eyes scanning the yard for any hint of the mysterious visitor. Suddenly something brushed her ankle. She gasped, looking down to find a solitary black feather at her feet. Just then a gust of wind